The lone resident shouted a stunned number and muttered that it neared 10 million. System notices confirmed that all requirements had been met and declared expansion underway. Smoke and falling embers framed the notice while the street below smoldered in silence. Flames had eaten into the calacan as burning oil streamed down the building face. Smaller goblins were consumed, and the lone resident stayed on the balcony, watching the beasts falter. He stepped back and laughed. He declared the plan had worked as a system panel announced a new skill. Notifications confirmed loot requirements met. The HUD reported a large reward deposited into the house ledger. He shouted a stunned number and muttered that it neared 10 million. System notices declared expansion underway, while smoke and falling embers framed the display. He stood amid embers laughing, then paused as the railing jolted, and a thin sound rose beneath him. His expression flipped from triumph to alarm. A pale blue column of light opened below the ledge. He pitched forward and tumbled into the glowing shaft, crying out as the balcony watched him disappear. After he fell through the pale column, motion and a distant hum filled the air. Light narrowed into a shaft, and he was expelled into a furnished room. 4 neighbors sat around a low table, playing with a small child. Their faces were tense, but calm as they looked toward the ceiling. The resident landed nearby and stared, sweat and disbelief on his face. He whispered a single stunned word and then asked if they were people. A neighbor father rose, and the group answered without alarm or surprise. He realized they matched the neighbors from the house beside his own. The room held a fragile quiet as the hum faded and questions gathered. After he had fallen through the pale column, a distant hum lingered, while light funneled him into a furnished room. 4 neighbors sat around a low table, and they played with a small child. Their faces were tense, but measured as they glanced toward the ceiling above them. The lone resident landed nearby and stared, sweat and disbelief plastered across his face. He whispered a single stunned question and then asked if they were people. The neighbors rose and answered without alarm, while others remained calm. Recognition hit him. They matched the neighbors from the adjacent house beside his own. The fragile quiet held as the hum faded and questions gathered. He suddenly clutched his head, and pain blurred his vision. He sank to his knees with a ragged sound and a single choked cry while muttering what had happened moments earlier. He watched a vertical column of cool blue portraits appear on the wall. Each frame bore a name and age: Choi Hyungjun, Park Hyun, Choi Naelan, and Choi Soyeon. The images held a clinical stillness under hexagonal light. A system panel declared those beings met the requirements and asked whether to grant them citizenship. The prompt sat plain on a deep blue field and offered a single clear choice. A stylized emblem filled the next frame, and then the view cut down. Bare feet stepped onto a wooden floor and paused in the frame. The feet were human and silent. The room held the question without answer. The hum dimmed and a thin quiet gathered around the unbroken prompt. He watched the vertical column of portraits and names appear on the wall. Each frame displayed clinical hexagonal lighting and the ages of family members. The system asked whether to grant them citizenship and presented a single clear choice. Bare feet entered the frame, and the young man stood quietly on the floor. He worried that refusing citizenship would expose the family to the monsters outside. He hesitated, then resolved to give 4 of them citizenship to keep them safe. The prompt confirmed the grant, and the system registered a new passive ability for him. He examined the notification and read the ability name Ultimate, Eyes version 3.1. He felt a tight focus settle as the skill declared nothing in the house could escape his gaze. He opened the management interface and asked whether anything related to citizens existed. The system displayed a vertical list of registered names beneath clinical hexagonal lighting. He recognized the family entries already on file and a new population total shown on the screen. He read the figures and frowned, alarm rising at how many people were counted. He muttered the number aloud and questioned whether that population was too large for his plan. The menu highlighted an individual entry and showed action options for the name. He hesitated before focusing on the selection, feeling the passive skill tighten his awareness of the house. He considered how each decision would change the safety and obligations attached to those citizens. He stood under the room light and read a blue system panel about IXP and money distribution rates. He noted that the interface let him control how much the system would share with him. He pictured using that allocation to increase his strength over time. The UI then presented a quest option and asked whether it could give him a quest. He opened the quest details and read the clinical description listing time limits, rewards, and penalties for failure. The hexagonal UI framed the choice as procedural and final. He paused, feeling the passive skill still monitoring the house as obligation tightened. The prompt ended with a direct confirmation asking yes or no. He lingered on the decision and measured duty against advantage before answering. He stood under the room light and read the blue system panel about allocation and rates. The interface detailed distribution percentages, EXP allocation, and a new quest offer framed as final. The quest listed strict time limits, a monetary reward, and one clear penalty, death. The hexagonal UI demanded confirmation with a simple yes or no option. He hesitated and counted duty against the potential strength he would gain. He chose no, and the system confirmed the cancellation with blunt text. He crouched by the counter and considered his capacity to harm others on command. He thought bitterly that he could kill his citizens anytime if he chose. The screen pulsed and the UI plainly labeled that lethal control as his ability. He had canceled the system quest and counted the cost of lethal control in silence. He remained under the lamp and weighed duty against the power the UI had named. Then he activated Ultimate Eyes, and the ability announced itself with blunt clarity. His perception extended into the dark apartments across the way and captured a small family huddled on a couch. Children clung to a pale woman who asked her partner for guidance. The ability layered the scene with translated cries and the text "I see everything." He registered their fear without moving. The revelation tightened his resolve and clarified the reach of his choice, while the system continued to glow on the screen behind him. He had canceled the system quest and counted the cost of lethal control in silence. He stayed under the lamp and weighed duty against the power the UI named. Then he activated Ultimate Eyes, and the ability announced itself with blunt clarity. His perception reached across the courtyard into a dark apartment and fixed on a small family. Children clung to a pale woman who pleaded with her partner for guidance. The ability overlaid translated cries and stamped the words "I see everything" onto the scene. He watched as the father argued they needed water and decided to go out. The mother begged him to stay with the kids and avoid danger. The father insisted they had no choice and planned to try the nearby convenience store. His face showed hunger and thirst, and his hands tightened into fists. The system glowed behind the viewer, and the scope of his choice became unmistakable. He canceled the system quest and held the weight of lethal control alone. The lone resident sat under a lamp and balanced duty against the power the UI named. When lone resident activated Ultimate Eyes, the ability announced itself with blunt clarity. His perception swept the courtyard and fixed on a dark apartment. Inside, a small family argued over whether to risk the street for water. The mother clung to the children and begged the father to stay. The father insisted they had no choice and planned to try a convenience store. Hunger and thirst told on his face, and his hands tightened into fists. The system glowed behind lone resident, and the scope of his choice became unmistakable. Back in his apartment, he invoked the UI command and spoke the option aloud. The interface confirmed Open Store and returned a compact item list with a ding. He read the list and realized the situation was worse than he first thought. Choice pressed against him a second time, and the courtyard outcome tightened. Lone resident opened the skill window and scanned the compact text the system displayed. The system listed ultimate shut-in with clear passive effects and store benefits. It specified increased listing capacity and a 10% discount on item prices. He weighed the mercantile option and decided to invest in the upgrade. He confirmed the choice aloud and accepted the system prompt to upgrade. A notification declared ultimate shut-in had reached level 2 with immediate effects. The system announced 20 allowed listings and applied a 10% discount. Relief tightened into resolve as lone resident pumped his fist and said yes. The ding confirmed the upgrade and refocused his plan toward the courtyard need. He prepared to use the expanded store as leverage for redistribution or trade. He noticed he still had 2 skill points left to allocate toward upgrades. He chose to invest them in his store and triggered another level increase. The system confirmed the ultimate shut-in store had advanced to level 3. New functions unlocked, including the ability to restore old items into new ones. A second benefit allowed him to buy listed goods at their original prices. He weighed the practical value of these features for his courtyard plan. Relief tightened into determination, and he decided to open his store immediately. The interface displayed the store panel and the option to list or sell items. He smiled and muttered that leveling the store to 3 had been worthwhile. He tapped the command, and the store UI opened with blue confirmation. The lone resident realized he still had 2 unspent skill points and allocated them to his store. The ultimate shut-in store advanced to level 3 and granted restoration and original price purchase functions. Relief gave way to resolve as he opened the store interface and confirmed the upgrade. He decided to raise other skills and promptly selected the loyalty preservation ability to improve. The system asked for confirmation, and he confirmed the upgrade by selecting yes. He pictured providing electricity and water to a neighbor and imagined requesting favors in return for the utilities. A system message confirmed the loyalty preservation increase and chimed a short ding. The interface then announced a new capability that allowed him to register vassals. He paused and asked aloud what vassals were while weighing the social leverage this feature might grant.